Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm JC, and today's video is going to be about characters and backstory. More to the point, the importance of creating backstory for all of your characters, including the side ones. I know sometimes we like to forget about those side characters, and we think that they don't really matter because they're side characters, but side characters need love too. And I have about four different reasons for why creating backstory is very vital to your story, especially the main character in your story. Number one, knowing the background of your side character gives them more depth so that they are not literally just there to prop up your main character. I mean, yes, the side character is like the best friend or the sidekick to the main character, and they're there to give your main character more to do and more of a story. But if they're just like there as props, as a reader, and because I've read books where I could tell that no one gave any thought to the side character, it's it kind of brings down the main character a bit when the side character is just there. And I feel like creating some backstory, and by backstory, I do mean their background, how they grew up, how they lived in the past, how they live now, could say a lot about them. Their lifestyle choices, whether they have a degree, whether they are a high school dropout, all of these things matter, especially in the main character, but definitely in the side characters too, because they give more depth. Number two, giving the side character more backstory can add more depth to your main character as well, not just to the side character. I think I explained a little bit in point one, but if you know the bond that created um, if you know that the bond that's created between the side character and the main character is because perhaps they both went to boarding school, like they're apart from each other, their lives or childhoods completely different. The one thing in common they have is they both went to this boarding school and they felt completely lonely and isolated from their family. That might be their only commonality. But I feel like if you don't tell the readers that the side character met the main character in the boarding school and this is why they were in the boarding school, this is their backstory, you kind of miss the connection, the ability to weave their stories together a bit better to explain why they're friends or why they're not friends, why they might be rivals, why they've maybe always been competitive with one another. Are they more similar to each other than not? We don't know if we only have the backstory of the main character, because the side character is important. We don't know what draws them together without knowing the background behind the second person. Number three, if you're writing a series, um, then you don't necessarily know if your side character in book one could become a more focal point in the subsequent books. For instance, my mystery series, I have one main character, but I've decided to do it where it's kind of like a dual main character situation in each book. And the way I'm going to do it is like each book has a different sub main character, side character, whatever. But in book one, except for Mackenzie Brown, they were all side characters. But I am going to take each of those side characters and flesh them out even more so. I have backstories to all my characters. Y'all know I'm a plotter to the core, so I've already plotted and planned all of their backstories and everything out. But that helps me in the subsequent books, because in like book two, where the cop or the detective who then becomes her love interest is now the sub main character. I don't have to create such an elaborate backstory from out of nowhere because I have the backstory from book one and I can just expand upon it. Now, I'm not saying when you create backstories for the side characters that you have to get as detailed as you do for the main, but it is good to know, did they have a rough childhood? Did they have an idyllic childhood? Did they have to never want for anything in their childhood? Or were they homeless? Were they were they poor? These things are important to the side character as well. In this third book, one of the side characters, who was her best friend in book one and book two, is now the sub main character in book three. But I have her backstory to already go on, and now I'm just expanding upon it. So if you already have a starting point for their backstory, it makes it easier to expand on that. When you enter them into the focal point of maybe the next book, if you choose to take a side character from just the side character to the focal point. And lastly, number 4, I think the readers are more invested if all of the characters have a story behind them. And of course, every novel has the main character, the person who the book is all about. But I know for me as a reader, when I read stories where I get to know a little bit into the world of this side character who is not the main character but contributes to the story of the main character in some way, I feel more connected all the way around to all the characters, and it just makes me more invested in the story as a whole and not just the story of the main character. I'm invested in what happens to, I mean, even the really good stories give me backstory of the villain. So I'm even invested in, well, does the villain, like, are they brought to justice? And then sometimes I feel a little empathy for the villain, given, depending on their backstory. I'm just, gives a little more context to the story as a whole, makes me feel more invested when I'm reading. So I think to develop a more rounded novel, you should definitely think about having backstory for all, not just the main character, all of the side characters as well. Now, I'm not saying you have to do like 5 pages of background on the side characters, but knowing whether they were raised in a single parent household or a 2-parent household, knowing whether they were, poor, rich, knowing whether they dropped out of high school, whether they went to college and got a degree, whether they went to college and dropped out of college, could say something about them. It just adds more context to the story, adds more context to the characters, and if you care about all of the characters that you're writing about, I feel like as a writer, it makes you more interested and excited to write the story. If you only care about the one part that involves the main character and you're not really interested in writing the other parts, I mean, I think as a reader can tell. A reader can tell when you just kind of got disinterested writing this part and you just wrote it because you felt you had to. Readers can tell that. You guys as readers know that you can tell when the writer just lost interest. And I think creating backstory to all the characters holds interest of the writer and the reader. So that's my reasons why I go in depth in creating backstory for all of my characters. Honestly, I feel like if you can't be bothered to create a backstory for a character, then perhaps they shouldn't be there. It's just my opinion. So that's going to be it for this video. If you like what you see and you want to see more videos from me, make sure that you hit that like and subscribe button and let me know in the comments. Are you a plotter, pantser, or planter? And how important is creating character backstory for you in your story? Let me know. Until next time, have a blessed day. Bye.